alien Giantess was too big and impossible to satisfy, until a human's magical touch unleashed it. On the distant world of Valeth Prime, the sky was never truly dark. Pale blue clouds drifted slowly above cities built from crystal and alloy, glowing softly at all hours. Yet despite the beauty, fear lived in every corner of the planet. It did not come from war or monsters, but from something far more tragic. She was called Karzyra. Karzyra was an alien giantess, a being so tall that her head rose above the tallest towers. From a distance, she looked like a moving mountain, her body covered in natural armor that shimmered with flowing energy lines. Her people, the Valethi, believed she was born as a guardian, a living pillar meant to keep the planet stable. Long ago, her kind had saved worlds from collapsing stars and tearing dimensions. But power always came with a price. Karzyra's body was designed to absorb, store, and release massive amounts of cosmic energy. To remain stable, that energy had to flow in perfect balance. If it did not, the pressure inside her grew painful and dangerous. For smaller beings, balance could be adjusted with machines or mental training. For someone her size, it was almost impossible. For many years, Valethi scientists tried everything. They built enormous towers that connected to her body, hoping to draw excess energy away. They created floating rings that circled her like moons, adjusting frequencies and waves. They even attempted ancient rituals passed down through their history. Nothing worked. Every failure made the pressure inside Karzyra worse. She did not scream or destroy cities on purpose. When the pain grew too strong, the ground shook beneath her feet. Energy storms formed in the sky. Buildings cracked and systems failed. Each time it happened, she would retreat farther from the cities, isolating herself to protect the people she loved. But fear is easy to grow and hard to control. Whispers spread among the Valethi. Some called her a ticking disaster. Others said she should be sent into deep space, far away from inhabited worlds. The Galactic Council watched closely, calculating risks and probabilities. Eventually, they made a decision. Valeth Prime was marked for evacuation. If Karzyra lost control completely, the planet might be destroyed. The Council would not risk other worlds trying to save one giantess, no matter how noble she was. They ordered all non-essential traffic to leave and sealed the system under quarantine. Karzyra heard the announcement from afar. She stood alone on a wide plain of silver stone, far from the cities. When the words reached her, her massive hands slowly clenched. "So this is how it ends," she said softly. Her voice rolled across the land like distant thunder. She felt the familiar pressure building inside her chest again, heavier than before. Not just energy this time, but sorrow. She had protected them. She had tried to endure the pain quietly. Yet now she was being abandoned. Far away, beyond the quarantine line, a small human research vessel drifted through space. It was barely noticeable compared to the warships guarding the system. Its hull showed signs of long travel, and its engines were modest at best. Inside the ship was Elias Ward. Elias was not a soldier or a hero. He was a human energy field specialist, sent to study unstable regions of space. Humans were still considered a young species by the galaxy. They lacked the advanced technology of older civilizations, but they had something rare: adaptability. Humans could interact with energy fields instinctively, often without fully understanding how they did it. Many alien scientists found this disturbing. Some found it fascinating. Elias was reviewing data when an alert sounded. A distress signal pulsed across his console, old, powerful, and full of strain. It did not match any standard emergency code. "That's not natural," Elias muttered. The signal was coming from inside the quarantine system. Protocol told him to turn away. Logic said the same. But humans were not famous for always following logic when someone was suffering. Elias adjusted his course. As his ship crossed into the system, Warning messages flooded his screens. Automated council defenses locked onto him, issuing commands to retreat. Elias transmitted a simple message in response. Human research vessel responding to distress. I am not armed. I am not hostile. The defenses paused. No one expected a human to do something this foolish. Valeth Prime grew large in the viewport. From orbit, Elias could already see energy storms flickering across the atmosphere. Something on the planet was badly out of balance. When his ship descended, Elias finally saw her. Karzira stood near the horizon, her massive form glowing faintly with internal light. The energy lines across her body pulsed unevenly, like a heart struggling to keep rhythm. Even from kilometers away, Elias felt the pressure she was under. His instruments spiked wildly, unable to properly read her output. "Dear God," he whispered. His ship landed on a reinforced platform built long ago for maintenance operations. The Valethi had not used it in years. As Elias stepped out, the ground vibrated gently with each distant movement Karzira made. She noticed him almost immediately. A tiny shape, fragile. Walking toward her. "Leave," Karzira said, her voice echoing across the plains. "This place is no longer safe." Elias stopped, looking up. From her perspective, he was smaller than a single finger, yet he did not turn away. "I'm not here to trap you," he called back. "I felt your pain." That made her pause. No one had ever said that before. "You cannot help me," she replied. "My size makes balance impossible. Everything that touches me breaks or fails." Elias thought for a moment, then continued forward slowly, making sure his movements were calm and visible. "Humans don't always use machines," he said. "Sometimes we listen." Karzira watched him approach, confused and curious despite herself. When he was close enough, she lowered one enormous hand, resting it carefully on the ground. The energy around her flared dangerously. Elias took a deep breath. He placed his palm against the warm, glowing surface of her skin. There was no explosion, no shockwave. Instead, the energy responded. It flowed toward him, then through him, spreading out gently like water finding a new path. Elias felt warmth, pressure, and a strange sense of connection. He adjusted instinctively, grounding himself, letting the energy move instead of resisting it. Karzira gasped. For the first time in centuries, the pain inside her eased. The pressure softened. Her breathing slowed. The energy lines across her body steadied into a smooth, calm glow. The storms above began to fade. She stared down at the human, her massive eyes wide with disbelief. "What did you do?" she asked quietly. Elias looked up just as surprised. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just helped it move." Across the planet, sensors stabilized. Across the system, ancient observers noticed something impossible. A human had touched a living titan, and the universe had listened. And this was only the beginning. Silence spread across the silver plains of Valeth Prime. The wind slowed. The sky, once filled with unstable light storms, settled into calm layers of blue and white. Sensors across the planet stopped screaming warnings and began reporting something none of the Valethi scientists believed possible: stability. Karzira remained perfectly still, afraid that even the smallest movement might break the fragile calm inside her. The unbearable pressure she had carried for centuries was no longer crushing her from within. It was still there, powerful and vast, but now it flowed instead of fighting her. Below her, Elias Ward stood with his hand still pressed gently against her skin. His legs trembled not from fear but from effort. Sweat formed on his brow as he focused, breathing slowly, grounding himself just as he had been trained on unstable human colonies. He finally stepped back, lowering his hand. The energy did not surge. It did not collapse. It remained balanced. Karzira slowly lifted her massive hand from the ground and straightened to her full height. For the first time in memory, standing tall did not hurt. She felt light. "You should not be able to do that," she said quietly. Elias exhaled and gave a tired smile. "Yeah, I've heard that before. High above the planet, the Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. Holographic projections showed live feeds from Valeth Prime, stable readings, calm skies, and a single human standing near the feet of a resonant titan. "This is impossible," one counselor snapped. "No species can directly interact with a titan's core field." "Humans are not supposed to," another added. "They lack the technology." A third counselor leaned forward, eyes narrow. "Then perhaps they do not need it." Back on the surface, Valethi observers cautiously emerged from shelters and distant monitoring stations. None dared approach too closely, but word spread quickly. The giantess was calm, and the human was still alive. Karzira slowly knelt, careful not to disturb the ground. Even kneeling, she towered above Elias, but her movements were controlled, almost gentle. "You felt no fear," she said. "Why?" Elias considered the question. "I did, but fear doesn't mean you stop. Humans learned that a long time ago." She studied him closely, sensing his energy signature. It was small, almost fragile, yet flexible. Where her own power was vast and rigid, his adapted, bending without breaking. "You balanced me," she said. "But for how long?" Elias looked at his hand, still faintly warm. "That's the problem. I don't think this was a one-time thing." Karzera's eyes dimmed slightly. "Then I will become dependent on you." "That's not what I want," Elias replied quickly. I think we can teach your energy to do what mine did, flow instead of compress." The idea was dangerous. For centuries, her people believed titans were fixed beings, unchangeable forces of nature. To suggest that Karzira could learn a new way to exist challenged everything they knew. Yet the proof stood before them. The Valethi High Speaker finally approached, her hover platform trembling as it drew near. "Human Elias Ward," she said carefully, "the Council requests your immediate withdrawal from the planet." Elias frowned. "Why?" "Because if you are removed," the speaker admitted, "we can confirm whether this stability is temporary." Karzira's massive hand clenched. "No," she said, her voice firm but controlled. "He stays." The ground hummed softly, a reminder of the power she still carried. The High Speaker hesitated, then bowed. "As you wish, Guardian." That single word sent a ripple through the Valethi ranks. Guardian, not threat, not disaster. Over the following days, Elias remained on Valeth Prime. He was given a small research shelter reinforced with energy dampeners, though Karzira insisted on keeping him within sight. Not out of possession, but caution. She feared the balance might collapse if he vanished. Together, they experimented. Elias discovered that when he stood near her and focused, her energy naturally adjusted, syncing with his breathing and posture. When he moved away too far, the pressure slowly returned. "This isn't sustainable," Elias said one evening as the twin sun set. "You shouldn't need me forever." Karzira looked toward the horizon. "I have needed pain forever," she replied. "This is already more than I hoped for." But Elias refused to accept that. Humans had survived harsh worlds not by enduring suffering, but by changing how they lived. He began teaching Karzira basic grounding techniques, simple things, explained in basic terms. "Imagine your energy like a river," he said, "not a wall holding back the ocean." She listened carefully, trying to copy his focus. At first, it failed. Her energy surged and wavered wildly, but she did not give up. Days passed, then weeks. Small victories came. She learned to release energy slowly into the planet instead of storing it all inside. She learned to rest without locking herself rigid. The tremors became rare. The storm stopped entirely. Valeth Prime began to heal. The Council, however, grew uneasy. If a single human could stabilize a Titan, what else could humans do? Whispers spread through the galaxy. Some saw hope, others saw danger. One Council faction proposed relocating Elias for study. Another suggested removing him permanently before humans gained influence over Titan kind. Karzira sensed the shift before anyone told her. "They are afraid," she said. "They always are," Elias replied. It's easier than understanding. One night, as stars filled the sky, Karzira spoke words she had never spoken aloud. "If they take you," she said, "I will lose this balance." Elias looked up at her massive face, calm and steady now. "Then we make sure they don't." That was the moment Karzira realized something important. She was no longer alone, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans were not just survivors. They were connectors, and nothing scared ancient powers more than change. The calm on Valeth Prime did not go unnoticed. Across the galaxy, long-range sensors confirmed what many believed impossible. The resonant titan, Karzira, was no longer destabilizing her world. Energy output had dropped to safe levels. Planetary systems once marked for evacuation were returning to normal function. And at the center of it all was a single human. That fact unsettled the Galactic Council more than any energy storm ever had. In the highest chamber of the Council, voices overlapped in sharp debate. "Humans are unpredictable," one elder declared. "If one of them can influence a titan, then their entire species becomes a strategic risk." "They did not conquer her," another countered. "They helped her." "That makes it worse," came the reply. "Influence without force is harder to control." The decision was made quietly, without public announcement. A specialized envoy fleet would be sent to Valeth Prime. Officially, they would offer protection and cooperation. Unofficially, they would secure Elia's ward and remove him from the equation. On the planet below, Karzira felt the shift long before the ships arrived. She stood at the edge of the plains, eyes closed, sensing the subtle changes in space. Her awareness had grown sharper since learning to guide her energy instead of fighting it. "They are coming," she said. Elias, sitting near his shelter and reviewing data, looked up. "Council?" "Yes, and not with trust." Elias sighed. "Figures." Over the past months, Karzira had improved beyond what even she thought possible. She could now stand for hours without pain. She could regulate her energy enough to walk near the cities without causing damage. The Valethi had begun rebuilding, no longer living in fear of tremors or sudden storms. To them, Elias was a miracle. To the Council, he was a variable. The first Council ships entered orbit like silent watchers, sleek, armed, and unmistakably powerful. Official transmissions followed, polite and carefully worded. "Human Elias Ward," the message read, "the Council requests your presence aboard our vessel for cooperative research purposes." Elias closed his eyes for a moment. "That's not a request." Karzira's hands slowly clenched. The ground responded with a low hum, but she steadied herself, breathing as Elias had taught her. "They will take you," she said, "whether you agree or not." Elias looked up at her massive form. "I won't go." Silence followed his words. "You cannot fight them," Karzira said. "Even I cannot face the Council fleet alone." "I'm not planning to," Elias replied calmly. Instead of fear, his voice held resolve. Humans had learned long ago that strength did not always mean force. Sometimes it meant standing in the open and refusing to move. The Council envoy landed near the main city, bringing with them officials, guards, and advanced containment units. They approached Elias under the watchful eyes of Valethi citizens and the towering presence of Karzira in the distance. "Elias Ward," the lead envoy said, "you are to come with us." Elias stood. "No," the word echoed louder than expected. "This world was going to be abandoned," he continued. "You gave up on her, on them, I didn't." "This is not your decision," the envoy replied. Karzira took a step forward. The ground trembled, but did not crack. Every guard raised their weapon, then froze as Karzira raised one massive hand, palm open, not in threat but declaration. "He stays," she said. Energy rippled outward, controlled, focused, not destructive. Precise. For the first time, the Council saw a Titan exercising restraint without suppression systems. "That control," one envoy whispered, "is learned." Elias stepped forward, standing directly beneath Karzira's shadow. "You're afraid humans can do what you can't," he said. "Help instead of dominate." The envoy's expression hardened. "You presume too much." Before negotiations could continue, a new signal cut through the air. An ancient harmonic frequency, rarely used. Another Titan had awakened. Far across the stars, a resonant Titan on a mining world had destabilized. Its containment systems failed. Evacuation alarms echoed through the system. The council froze. Karzira felt it instantly. The pain, the imbalance. She knew that feeling too well. "They are suffering," she said. Elias turned to the envoys. "Send me." Shock rippled through the group. "You cannot seriously suggest." "I can help," Elias said simply. "And so can she." Karzira straightened, energy flowing smoothly through her form. "I will not be your weapon," she said, "but I will be your proof." The council had no better option. Within hours, Elias and Karzira were escorted to orbit. Special platforms adapted to her size carried her into space without restraints. The sight alone sent waves through the galaxy, a Titan moving freely without chains or control fields. When they arrived at the distressed world, chaos filled the void. The second Titan writhed in pain, energy surging violently, tearing apart installations. Elias approached, heart pounding. This time, Karzira followed his lead. She extended her awareness, mirroring the techniques Elias had shown her. Instead of forcing balance, she guided it, slowly, carefully. Elias reached out, touching the Titan's energy field, not physically but through resonance. Together, human and Titan calmed the storm. The second Titan stabilized. Silence fell over the system. The council watched in stunned disbelief. It was no longer a coincidence. It was a method. Humans did not control Titans. They taught them how to heal themselves. When Elias returned to Valeth Prime, nothing was the same. The council formally lifted the quarantine. Valeth Prime was declared protected, not restricted. Karzira was no longer labeled a threat but a living ambassador. And Elias Ward was offered a position no human had ever held. He declined. "I'm not here to rule," he said. "I'm here to help." Karzira looked down at him, a gentle glow surrounding her. "For the first time," she said, "my existence does not bring fear." Elias smiled. "Welcome to being human famous. People will still worry, but things change." Above them, the stars seemed closer than ever. And across the galaxy, ancient powers began to understand a simple truth. Humans were not the strongest species. They were the ones who made others stronger. And that was far more dangerous and hopeful than anyone had imagined. The galaxy did not change all at once. Change never happened like that. It started quietly, with reports that sounded impossible to those who had ruled for centuries. A third resonant Titan stabilized without destruction. Then a fourth. On distant worlds, ancient beings once feared as disasters began to calm, not through force or suppression, but through understanding. At the center of it all stood Valeth Prime, and beside its guardian stood a human. Elias Ward never asked for fame, yet his name spread across systems faster than any official announcement. To some, he was a miracle worker. To others, a dangerous symbol of human influence. To the Titans, he was something far more rare. He was someone who listened. Karzira now stood openly near the rebuilt cities of her people. For the first time in her life, children gathered at safe distances, looking up at her in wonder instead of fear. Valethi elders walked beneath her shadow without trembling. Her energy flowed steadily like a calm sea instead of a trapped storm. "You walk among them now," Elias said one evening as the suns dipped low. "Does it still hurt?" Karzira shook her head slowly. "No, the pain is a memory now. One I will not forget, but one that no longer controls me." She had grown wiser since their first meeting, not smaller, not weaker, balanced. The Galactic Council convened again, but this time their chamber felt different. Fear still existed, but it was no longer dominant. Evidence had a way of changing even ancient minds. "We cannot ignore what humans have achieved," the High Arbiter admitted. "They have altered the relationship between our civilization and the Titans." Then we must decide, another counselor said, whether humans are a threat or a bridge. That word echoed. Bridge. Karzira was invited to speak before the council. No Titan had ever been allowed such a role. When she arrived, towering yet calm, the chamber fell silent. I was born a burden, she said, her voice steady. Not because of my power, but because no one knew how to share it with me. The human did not dominate my strength. He did not fear it. He stood within it. She turned her gaze to the assembled leaders. Your systems failed me. His understanding saved me. Elia stood beside her, small but unafraid. I didn't fix her, he said simply. She fixed herself. Humans just help things move when they get stuck. That honesty struck deeper than any speech. The council voted. Humans were granted a new status, not as enforcers, not as rulers, but as harmonic partners, allowed to assist with Titan relations across the galaxy. It was an acknowledgement that some problems could not be solved by control. They had to be solved by connection. Not everyone was pleased. A rogue faction within the council feared loss of power. They believed Titans should remain tools or be destroyed if uncontrollable. In secret, they prepared a final solution, a weapon designed to overload Titan energy fields permanently. Their target was Valeth Prime. Karzira sensed it before alarms sounded. The air itself felt wrong, sharp, and unstable. They mean to end this, she said. Elias looked at the incoming data, eyes narrowing. They're scared. The weapon fired from beyond the system, a focused wave meant to collapse Karzira's energy control and trigger a catastrophic release. It should have worked. Instead, something unexpected happened. Karzira did not resist the wave. She opened herself to it. Elias stood at her side, grounding her, not by touch this time, but by presence. The techniques they had shared now flowed both ways. Her energy adjusted, absorbed, and redirected the attack harmlessly into space. The weapon failed. The shockwave was felt across the galaxy. A Titan had neutralized a superweapon without destruction. The rogue faction was exposed, arrested, and stripped of authority. Their fear had finally lost to proof. In the aftermath, Valeth Prime became a place of learning. Humans, Valethi, and even Titans gathered, not as masters and subjects, but as students of balance. Elias often wondered how his life had changed so completely. He had arrived alone, expecting nothing more than data and danger. He had found purpose. One day, as stars shimmered overhead, Karzira spoke quietly. You gave me more than relief, she said. You gave me choice. Elias smiled. You already had that. You just needed someone to remind you. She knelt carefully, lowering herself until her eyes were level with him. And what do you need, human? Elias thought for a long moment. A galaxy that stops assuming strength means control. Karzira rose again, her presence calm and vast. Then we will build it, together. Across the stars, Titans began to awaken not in pain but in curiosity. Worlds once abandoned were reclaimed. Conflicts cooled where humans served as mediators, not because they were the strongest, but because they understood limits, failure, and recovery. HFY stories spread among alien cultures, retold not as legends of conquest, but of compassion that reshaped power itself. Humans were no longer seen as fragile newcomers. They were seen as the species that taught the galaxy how to heal its giants. And as Elias looked out into the endless night, standing beside a being once feared as unstoppable, he understood something deeply human. The universe was not meant to be conquered. It was meant to be understood. And that was humanity's greatest strength.